So this is the second day that we're spending on factoring quadratic trinomials, ax squared plus bx plus c, when our a value is not equal to 1. Okay, and you already had a worksheet. We were supposed to have done the front half, the front side of the worksheet. And if you take a look at the front side of the worksheet, what do the instructions say? It says factor, right? Now, if you look at the back side of the worksheet, what do the instructions say? It says solve. So we need to understand the big difference of factoring, which is really a reverse distributed property, and solving, which is really about getting an actual value for a. So you want like a equals 5 or a equals 1/2, right? So what's the difference between this guy and this guy? Right here, they're telling you to factor. It's not an equation. It's a quadratic trinomial. Right here, they're telling you to solve. It's an equation. You want to get an actual value for a. All right, so we learned yesterday that if you don't have an a value of 1, right here it says when a is not equal to 1, we have to use this really long process of factoring. Step 1, multiply a times c. Step 2, make a list. Step 3, you convert your trinomial into a polynomial so you could factor by grouping, which is step 4. That takes a really long time. But we also learned an alternative method, a shortcut, right? I call this the magic shortcut method because it has some like unexplainable steps, like step 4, that's what I call the magic time, where you just divide your binomial by whatever you can. Anyways, let's do a couple of these examples. So on the front side of your worksheet, you actually had this one. I don't know what number it was, but you actually had this one. Let me actually work on this. And in order for us to factor this, what was the first type of factoring that we learned? GCF. So that's the first type of factoring we learned. That's the first type that you're supposed to attempt. Could you pull out something in common? Yes. So we're going to pull out a 3. If we pull out a 3, what's going to be left? 6h squared plus 5h minus 6. Now, it's way better to have this quadratic trinomial that has the a value of 6 and the c value of negative 6, as opposed to working with the original quadratic trinomial that has 18 times 18. That'd be ridiculous. So we are going to use our steps. Should we go with factoring by grouping, or should we go with the magic shortcut method? Magic shortcut method. All right, so either way, whether you do factoring by grouping or the magic shortcut method, you still have the same 2 steps. And the same 2 steps are, step 1, multiply a times c. So everybody, let's do a 1, and let's multiply the a value of 6 times the c value of negative 6. So, yep, a times c is negative 36. That is the answer to step 1. Moving on to step 2, we need to make a list of the multiples of negative 36. And we're looking for that pair of numbers that combine together to give us the middle value b, but we're talking about the new b, which is 5, not the original b, 15. I make a mistake a lot when it comes to this situation. I think of b being 15, but it's not 15. We already pulled out the 3, so my new b is 5. So anyways, let's do step 2, which is make a list. Negative 1 times 36. Negative 2 times 18. Negative 3 times 12. Negative 4 times 9. And if you don't know, or if you're not too comfortable with multiplication, just get your 36 and divide it by 3. It'll get you 12. 36 divided by 4, it'll get you 9 on a calculator. Anyways, you make that list. Oh yeah, there's one more. Negative 5 doesn't work, but negative 6 times 6, that also gives you a negative 36. Those are all the possible ways of getting negative 36. Which pair of numbers combines together to give us the middle value 5? The negative 4 and the 9, if you combine those, it really does give you this middle value positive 5. So that's the pair of numbers that we want. So what I want to do now is look back at our notes. Here's the notes. And step 3 is where it gets a little weird. And we just need to do the format, factored format with the ax and the ax. A is the number that's out in the front of your quadratic trinomial. So what is ax here in this case? 6, but instead of x, it's an h. So let's do that. let's write down our parentheses and put that ax value, which is 6h and 6h. Now, what do we do with this empty spot and this empty spot? What do we do with these guys? You take that -4, you put it right there. Take that +9, put it right there. -4, +9. Now, we still are not done. Step 4, and this is the magic time. This is what I call magic time. Step 4, you want to reduce each binomial by dividing it by its GCF, if possible, right? So, in other words, when you look at this 6 and this 4, what could you divide both by? By 2. So if I divide both by 2, let me see if I can make this a little, nope, that's not working. Hold on a sec. Let's make it a little smaller. Okay, and we're going to reduce the first binomial by 2. What's 6 divided by 2? 3. So we are magically dividing by 2. I'm not factoring out a 2, I'm magically dividing by 2. -4 divided by 2? 2. -2. All right, now how about the other one? What could I divide? Could I divide these guys by 2? No, by 3. So I am magically dividing by 3. I'm not factoring out a 3. I'm just magically dividing by 3. So what do I get? 6 divided by 3, that's going to be a 2h. 9 divided by 3, that's going to be a 3. Again, that's the magic step, right? So this is your factored form. However, we still had the GCF that we pulled out, that 3. We still need to bring that down. And now we could say that this is completely factored. So that's the factored form. We're done. When they say factor, they're talking about changing this to a reverse distributed property where you end up with this. If you were to distribute and then distribute and combine like terms, you will get the original quadratic trinomial. That's the answer when they ask you to factor. Now, if they don't ask you to factor, if they tell you to solve, you're still going to be factoring, but you factor to be able to get multiplication, to be able to split it with the zero product property, to be able to get two simple equations. All right? So whenever you have the word solve, you need to first get your equation and get it equal to 0. So this is the back side of your worksheet. All right? As a matter of fact, I think it's one of the later questions. I think the last one, number 29. And we are doing the odd ones only, all right? So you could follow along on number 29, or you could just watch this video right now and then try to do it later on your own. But anyway, step 1 is to get the equation equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 6a, and of course I can subtract 6a from the negative 16a. Let me rewrite what I have. I have an 8a squared, I have a minus 22a, I have an equal sign, and I still have a minus 12. I don't want a minus 12. I want to equal 0. Right? I don't want a negative 12. I want to equal 0. So how do I get rid of that negative 12? I add 12, the opposite. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Add 12 over here. Okay? I cannot really add 12, so I'm just going to rewrite everything. It's going to be a 8a squared. It's going to be a minus 22a with a plus 12 equals 0. Now at this point, I have something minus something plus something equals 0. I want something times something to give me 0. That way I could split those somethings and set them each equal to 0. So I need a factor. Okay, let's start by doing the GCF by pulling out that 2. So if I pull out the GCF of 2, what do I have left over?
It'd be
4a squared minus 11a plus 6. Perfect. Now, we could actually do this at this time because it's an equation. See, the beauty of an equation is that you can do anything you want to an equation as long as you do it to both sides. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't want this outside multiplication of 2, you could technically divide the left side by 2 and divide the right side by 2 if you wanted to. As a matter of fact, you could have gone to the original equation and noticed that's an 8, that's a 16, that's a 6, that's a 12. I'm going to divide everything by 2, and that would have made a simpler equation right from the start. Either way, I want to get rid of that outside 2 because it's an equation. I could do whatever I want as long as what I do to one side, I do it to the other side. So my new quadratic trinomial equation is 4a squared minus 11a plus 6 equals 0 divided by 2 is still 0. Now I need to factor this quadratic trinomial, split it, and solve. So let's do exactly that. Let's factor, split, and solve. But I am running out of space, so let me, I guess, put it over here. Let me rewrite it. And step 1, what's step 1? When we have an a value of 4 instead of 1? A times c. Now what is a, which is 4, times c, which is 6?
24.
That's 24? Okay, so that's our answer for step 1. Step 2, what's step 2? Make a list. Okay, so let's make a list. How can I get 24? 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, and 5 doesn't work, so that's it. Now, which pair of numbers, all you got to do is start adding. 1 and 24 is 25. Is that 25? No, it's 8 and 3. 8 plus 3 is 11, and that's 11, but it's negative. Right. So because we have the right numbers, but we have the wrong sign, because this is actually a negative 11, not a positive 11, all we need to do is change those right numbers, change the signs, right? So again, we have the right number. 3 plus 8 is 11, but we want it to be negative, so we have the right numbers. Let's just change the signs of those numbers. So I'm going to make that 3 a negative 3 and make that 8 a negative 8. So this is the right pair of numbers, not positive 3, positive 8. Anyhow, let's jump to step 3 on our shortcut, our magical shortcut method. We're going to rewrite it as ax. What is our ax term here? The 4a. Put that in right there and right there. Now, what do I do with this missing areas here? What do I put in here? The negative 3 and the negative 8. So let's put in the negative 3 right there and the negative 8 right there. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only one more magic step to do here. What's that fourth magic step? Reduce. In other words, divide each binomial by whatever possible. So the 4 and the 3, is there anything to divide that by? No. So I'm just going to leave that exactly the same. Let me put some space here. I got 4a minus 3, nothing happened. But the other one, you could divide by 2, but what's the greatest thing you could divide both by? 4. So if you divide both by 4, what do we end up with? We end up with a 1a, or I'm just going to put a, and then the negative 8 divided by 4, that's a 2. Are you with me? So far, all I've done, let me use a highlighter here. All I've done is taken this quadratic trinomial equation up here, and I've rewritten it in factored form. Now, it's still equal to 0, right? So I still need to make it equal to 0 over here. So let me actually do that. Equals 0. And now that I have something times something equals 0, I could split them each and set them each equal to 0. So one equation is going to read 4a minus 3, that equals 0. The other equation is going to be a minus 2, and that equals 0. So to get rid of that minus 3, yes, plus 3. Plus 3. So we're going to end up with 4a equals 3. Final step, divide by 4, divide by 4. So the answer is a equals 3/4. Now let's find the other answer. The other one's really easy. Plus 2, a equals 2. So a also equals 2. These are your two answers for that one problem. Once again, I want you to compare. When we're solving, we actually get two actual answers. A equals 3/4, a equals 2. Over here, when you're factoring, you just rewrite it reverse distributive property. You end up leaving it in factored form. So when you're solving, you're definitely going to factor. But why do we factor? We factor to be able to split them and solve, right? We factor to be able to split them and solve. So let's take a look at our homework. We were supposed to have already done the front side, and the front side is all about factoring, right? So you don't want actual answers. You want the parentheses, right? That you want it in factored form. We should have done that already. I've already posted videos on this front side. Let's look at the back side. That's what you're doing today. So on this back side, you have equations you want to solve, right? You want to solve. So what does that mean? You want actual answers. You want h equals 15, h equals negative 2/3. You want actual answers there. So this video is already getting too long. We're going to end it. Just remember that on this worksheet, on the back side, actually on the whole thing, we're only doing the odd ones. All right, so you're going to do 19, 21. As a matter of fact, we already did number 29. All right, and I will upload a video later explaining all the odd ones, so you could have all the answers, everything worked out for you. In case you're stuck, you could watch those videos.